Welcome to another edition of the SAP Ariba Customer Self-Service videos. In this series, we are going to see a high-level strategic sourcing end-to-end demo to demonstrate the value of an integrated procurement solution. The goal of this video is to demonstrate the value and capabilities of an end-to-end strategic sourcing scenario. Thereby, I will cover the modules Supplier Management, Sourcing, and Contract Management. As this video is aimed to cover the end-to-end process in under 10 minutes, I will only be able to cover the topics at a very high level. You can always contact your SAP Ariba go-to person if you would require more information on the full set of functionalities, or simply leave a comment under this video what you would like to see in the next edition. First, we're going to start in supplier management. Therefore, we're going to have a look at an already registered supplier, which will, by the way, accompany us through the whole end-to-end process. We can see at one glance that the supplier is registered and qualified, and if we move through the tiles, we would even get more information. The overview tile is aimed to really get a full picture of our supplier status. So in the summary, we do see for what commodities the supplier is registered. We can look up all the contacts which are associated to the supplier. We can even track the certificates, and we can also have a look at the public profile on the Ariba network of the supplier. Since the supplier has already been registered, we're now going to start a new qualification. As you can see here, the supplier has been qualified for 3 categories and even broken down by region. You could always go back and review the qualification questionnaire, but what we're going to do now is we're actually going to start a new one. Right now, we're looking at the qualification questionnaire start point. I'd like to qualify my supplier for the following category and for all regions. This qualification questionnaire doesn't require expiration. I can now decide what questionnaires to be sent to that supplier. We thereby differentiate the global qualification questionnaire, which is valid for all suppliers, and then targeted questionnaire, which, for example, can be conditioned on the commodity, as we can see here, for packaging materials. I can go ahead and send the qualification now to my chosen recipient. We now kicked off the qualification process for this commodity, and we can view that. Based on our own internal process, there are still some steps to be taken in order to mark the supplier as qualified. You can see a summary of the tasks and the to-be-filled questionnaires down here. We're going to skip those steps and look at the results directly. We are now jumping ahead of time. The supplier has filled the qualification questionnaire. We on our side did our internal assessment, and we can see down here that the supplier has been qualified. In addition, you can make this supplier pre-tag your preferred supplier for that very commodity which is qualified. Simply enter again the category and the region, as well as the status, and submit that. We have now successfully qualified that supplier, but we also made that supplier our preferred one for the category packaging materials. Now let's move on to sourcing. Let's start directly from the creation of the sourcing project. Let's give it a name. And we're going to do an RFP. For the sake of the 5-minute video, we're going to do a quick project. Just for your reference, a full project would involve a whole project management toolset where you could manage phases and tasks as well as multi-round bidding. And we're going to select the commodity we just qualified the supplier in. Based on my above choices, templates which are valid for the commodity and the selection will pop up. I'll go with the very first template, request for proposal. Based on my template selection, a lot of content will already be pre-populated. You will be guided by a 5-step wizard. In the first one, you set up the bidding rules. We just leave it at that. We start today, and we want to have responses back by end of next week. The theme is also automatically being populated from the template. We're not going to change anything here. And since we already qualified the supplier pre-tag for that very category, the supplier is automatically loaded into the sourcing project. We now have the possibility to add other suppliers. In the next step, we can actually add content. Since we already decided to perform a packaging project and made that kind of visible with the selection of the commodity, the content was also pre-populated. But as always, we could still add content from our library, which we want to have added to this project. In that chapter content, we also have the possibility to assign grading and scoring. In here, we can already weight and score the answers of our suppliers so that afterwards, when we get feedback, we have that automatically scored by the system. Once the grading information has been provided, we can go to the summary, check if everything is correct, and go ahead and publish the content. We are now awaiting feedback from our suppliers. We fast forward again and now assume that all the suppliers actually submitted their responses. And we can see down here that Prittag and Flying Dutchman actually did. With a little hammer, we see that in all categories, Prittag won because based on the price, but also of the other criteria like quality. We can now create a scenario which gives us the possibility to award our supplier. In that case, we're going to go for the best bid and submit that for award. We have now completed our sourcing project for packaging materials and can now go a step further and create the contract. The beauty of an end-to-end integrated scenario is that everything you have sourced you can automatically take over into a contract. And we're going to create a new contract. We are now able to create the contract. And we can see here that there has been the predecessor project, which came from our sourcing. It also is automatically applying the commodity. All we have to do in here is enter the term type and the effective date. Same as in sourcing, we're going to choose a template from where the contract will then be created. If you want to further push this into the operational piece in P2P, it is important that you're choosing the contract line items document. This means that the line items, the lots from the sourcing event, will be taken over into the contract and being pushed further to the procurement, where you then can apply catalog items to it. We are now in the contract workspace to actually start drafting, negotiating, and signing our contract. Based on the template, again, the process is being pre-populated as well as the documents. So let's go ahead and look at the tasks first. Do you remember when I mentioned in the sourcing bit with the full project that you could also have a project management workspace? Well, it looks exactly the same like here. So you could also have phases and tasks. I'm going to jump over these tasks. What I really want to show you is about the document section. And we're going to look at the draft main agreement. The draft main agreement is being populated from the template, and as you can see, there are already applied clauses to this contract. What I want to do now is actually download the main agreement and change something so you can see what happens to the clauses. We're now looking at the Word document which has been generated right out of the template. We can see the supplier we are going to have the contract with, the address, and so on. So let's go ahead and change something. Instead of payment terms 60 days, we're going to have 90. All I have to do is save it and upload again. I can simply drag and drop the updated main agreement into here. We can now see that the system automatically checks that a new document has been uploaded, and it now is asking me what do I want to do. And of course, I want to review the uploaded document. As outlined here, it automatically tells the user what has been changed. In that case, it was the payment term. And I can now either reject all the changes or I can go ahead with the new version, which we're going to do in that case. I want to save it as a version 2. And may I drag your attention to the clause after here. The system notices if something is going to get changed from a template, so it is appearing as non-standard. This is important for the legal team because you can report upon this. So for example, if a clause gets changed each and every time, you might want to review with legal if you want to update that clause. We can now go ahead and publish the contract. From now on, it will be sent to the supplier and you can negotiate and redline back and forth. It only comes to agreement when you digitally sign this document. We're not going to do that because we're running out of time, but I'd like to discuss one last thing, and that is the line items document. This might look familiar to you. These are the exact lots that we actually were asking our suppliers to bid on in the sourcing project. So you can see that all the information which was sourced is also automatically being dragged over into contract. This is really important because if you want to package that into a catalog, you can apply the negotiated prices to it, and this is the beauty of a full end-to-end scenario. In the past 10 minutes of this demo, we saw how suppliers can get qualified, how this very same supplier can be pulled into sourcing events. We did award the same supplier for that preferred category and dragged over the lot items into a contract where everything was again coming from a template. All the information gathered during the whole process was being dragged on from supplier management, sourcing, over to contract management, and we could now take it even further and push those line items into a catalog. We hope that you got a very good insight about what Ariba is capable of, but of course this is just a very small amount of functionalities the whole strategic sourcing suite has to offer.